It's not about black and white. It's about that white player and that black player. Why? Because of the history that they had before they came to the WNBA. You see, it was all instigated. If Angel Reese was never in Caitlin Clark's face, taunting her the way that she did when they mimicking what Caitlin Clark was doing to numerous opponents en route to the Final Four. And then Angel Reese and LSU bust their living you-know-what at that particular moment in time. And Angel Reese was in her face chirping at her the way that she did. It would have never gotten to this point. But
the sports commentary landscape was rocked, not by a gentle tremor, but by a seismic event when Stephen A. Smith decided to weigh in on the Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark saga. He didn't just offer an opinion. He unleashed what many viewers and media analysts described as a verbal nuke, a commentary so devastatingly direct that some quipped ESPN might need to issue hazard pay to those in the studio. This was far from your standard sports debate. It escalated into a televised reckoning, a moment where the usual niceties of sports analysis were incinerated, leaving behind only the raw, unvarnished core of the issue. The flashpoint for this explosion was an already simmering controversy involving an alleged slur connected to Caitlin Clark, a situation that had rapidly metastasized into a full-blown cultural conflict. Angel Reese's public statements had undeniably lit the fuse, but it was Stephen A. Smith who arrived with a jerry can of rhetorical gasoline, transforming smoldering embers into an inferno of unfiltered, provocative truth that demanded everyone's attention.
Unfortunately, it comes with the crown.
I got to push back on you a little bit.
Okay.
I think you're being a little bit too PC. Let's call it what it is. I am not trying to say that she should be criticized or she is wrong. What I'm saying is by pulling it down, clearly you felt there was something wrong with it. Now, yes, you are 22. Yes, you are young. And there's a lot of things that we didn't want people to know about when we were her age. Fair enough, especially me, okay? Because I'm 30 plus years removed from that age. I got that part. There was no social media then or whatever. But here's my point to you. She knows this social media. She is not dumb. She's quite a brilliant young lady. Nor am I going to take my eyes off of what transpires with the WNBA over the next 2 weeks while Caitlin Clark is out with the quad strain. And the reason why is because, let me tell you something right now. I'm not going to go to word hate. I'm not going to be out there like RG3 was saying that Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark or other players hate Caitlin Clark. But I will say this. I don't think it's specific about Caitlin Clark. I think it's what Caitlin Clark represents.
The crucial context, as Stephen A. relentlessly emphasized, lay in the pre-WNBA history between these two burgeoning stars. He transported viewers back to the highly charged atmosphere of the 2023 NCAA championship game, a stage where Angel Reese, in a moment of victory for LSU, very publicly taunted Caitlin Clark. Reese mimicked Clark's own signature, "You can't see me" hand gesture and other celebrations, which Clark had used against previous opponents. It was all instigated if Angel Reese was never in Caitlin Clark's face, taunting her the way that she did. Stephen A. declared with conviction, pinpointing that very public act not merely as trash talk, but as the foundational moment of the escalating animosity. He argued that if that on-court drama hadn't occurred with such high stakes and visibility, the feud wouldn't have carried over with such venom and intensity into their professional WNBA careers. For Smith, this wasn't initially a broad narrative about black and white, but a specific interpersonal conflict ignited by the actions of that white player and that black player in a specific unforgettable moment.
This was a basketball play. You understand? It was the heat of the moment. I got it. The fact that the sky was getting romped by 35 certainly didn't help matters. I get all of that too, okay? But the reality of the situation is clear. I think it was a basketball play. I don't think it's much ado about anything. I think both of you are 100% correct in terms of not only attributing it to competition, but loving the fact that they're being allowed to compete. We should not judge.
Stephen A. Smith's central thesis was a bold and direct challenge to the prevailing narrative that the controversy was primarily, or even significantly, about overarching racial tensions within the WNBA finding a new focal point in Clark. Instead, he meticulously, almost surgically, focused on the established on-court history between Reese and Clark. He insisted, with unwavering certainty, that Reese's taunting during that NCAA tournament, the mimicking of Clark's celebrations after LSU had busted living you-know-what out of Iowa, as he colorfully put it, was the critical, undeniable starting point of this particular firestorm. It would have never gotten to this point, Stephen A. reiterated, his voice laced with a tone that brooked no argument, if not for that initial, very public confrontation. He wasn't entirely dismissing the existence or relevance of race in sports, but he was fiercely adamant that in this specific sequence of events, the documented prior on-court behavior and competitive rivalry were the primary, unignorable drivers of the subsequent escalating drama, suggesting Reese's later comments about facing hate were perhaps a deflection or a reframing of the original grievance.
Clark to one of the footages they show was Angel Reese getting up and clapping and stuff like that. They keep their eyes on stuff like this. Here's where I'm going where the rivalry kicks in. Angel Reese, the reason why, obviously, the whole Caitlin Clark-Angel Reese thing happened was because when they met in the NCAA tournament in 2023, when Angel Reese was doing all of this, because Caitlin Clark had been doing that to her opponents when she got the best of them. So Angel Reese and LSU got the best of her, and that's what she did unapologetically, okay?
When Angel Reese spoke out about the hate she was receiving and alluded to racist undertones, particularly in the context of Caitlin Clark's highly publicized arrival and the intense scrutiny that followed both players, it undeniably set off a cultural firestorm. While a significant portion of the public and media offered empathy and saw her words as a reflection of genuine struggles faced by Black female athletes, Stephen A. Smith appeared to interpret these comments through a decidedly different, more skeptical lens. He questioned not just the content, but the timing and strategic framing of her remarks, especially when linked to specific on-court incidents like a hard foul. He implied that by foregrounding these elements immediately after a contentious play or in response to the Clark phenomenon, Reese might have been, intentionally or not, obscuring other contributing factors, like the aforementioned on-court history, or, in his more critical assessment, engaging in what he perceived as a form of performative outrage. His robust pushback wasn't merely a casual disagreement, it was a fundamental, direct challenge to the entire way Reese was framing her experience and attributing the source of the negativity she faced within this specific high-profile controversy.
She balled at Iowa in college. She's balled since she's been in the NBA. She came into the league last year with no break whatsoever between the college game and the pro game and did her thing. Ended up as an all-star, ended up being fourth in the league in MVP voting, was the clear winner for Rookie of the Year. No competition whatsoever in that regard when it was really all said and done. We know what she brings to the table.
What erupted from Stephen A. Smith was far removed from the often predictable cadence of sports hot takes. It was a meticulously constructed, undeniably fiery teardown of what he perceived as a flawed narrative. Armed with, as one observer noted, facts, footnotes, and a fury that could fry a satellite, he dissected the situation with prosecutorial zeal. He lambasted what he saw as glaring double standards in public reaction and media coverage, critiqued narratives he felt were dangerously skewed by underlying biases, and launched a broader assault on a culture of performative outrage, where, in his view, social media clout and dramatic declarations often overshadowed on-court substance and accountability. His words were frequently described as being sharp enough to cut glass, illustrating the precision and incisiveness of his critique. He wasn't just addressing Angel Reese's statements. He was launching a wider offensive against a system and a mindset he clearly found deeply problematic, moving the conversation from a single foul to a pattern of behavior he felt needed to be called out with undeniable force.
Jackie Robinson of the WNBA will be Caitlin Clark if she stays healthy. There's a group of them that would hope for her to be out. But
why do you say she's going to be the Jackie Robinson of the WNBA?
Well,
it's not like she's the first white girl.
She's not the first white girl, but she's the first white superstar at the levels where she's scoring these, the threes she's shooting. She's like a Steph Curry. She's the first actual superstar that people care. When's the last time we watched like college basketball? If I told you, tell me the greatest college basketball female basketball players last 30 years, and you watch
Diana
I know her. She's our meat, but you look at some of these names, you see some of these people on how they do.
In Stephen A.'s compelling and provocative portrayal, Caitlin Clark wasn't an active aggressor or instigator in this most recent flare-up of controversy. Instead, she was framed as an unintentional, almost passive catalyst whose sheer presence and unprecedented impact were shaking the WNBA to its core. Her meteoric rise, the record-breaking viewership, the sold-out arenas, and the torrent of media attention she's attracted have, according to this perspective, inadvertently cast a harsh, unflattering spotlight on pre-existing sensitivities, league dynamics, and perhaps even the insecurities of some established players. Stephen A. acutely observed, "I don't think it's specific about Caitlin Clark. I think it's what Caitlin Clark represents." This representation encompasses more than just her playing style. It's about her being a new, overwhelmingly popular figure who is fundamentally altering the league's commercial landscape and public perception. And that disruptive force, he argued, seemed to be the real source of friction for some, rather than any specific action taken by Clark herself.
I actually feel bad for Angel Reese at this point, and it has nothing to do with like how she's handled herself or anything. It's just simply Caitlin Clark is so much better than Angel Reese at basketball that it doesn't feel fair.
Yeah, I think Angel Reese is struggling with the fact that Caitlin Clark is better at her best thing than she is.
She's better at everything.
And
she had a triple-double. She's tied for the third most triple-doubles in WNBA history, and she's played 50 games.
Yeah.
She's just better.
By the time he finished, Stephen A. had held up a mirror to the entire sports world, forcing everyone, fans, media, players.
The discourse then pivoted into exceptionally provocative and highly charged territory with the introduction of the comparison of Caitlin Clark to the Jackie Robinson of the WNBA. This analogy, which had been circulating in certain media spheres that Stephen A. navigates, immediately ignited a firestorm of debate due to its immense historical weight. The justification offered for such a loaded comparison, as relayed in the original analysis, was that Clark, as a white superstar, achieving never-before-seen scoring records and drawing stylistic parallels to an NBA icon like Steph Curry, was attracting a significantly new demographic and an unprecedented level of mainstream attention to the women's game. Whether one finds this comparison apt, offensive, or misguided, Stephen A. engaged with the idea directly, using it to underscore the seismic, undeniable shift in visibility and interest that Clark represents for the league, regardless of the discomfort or controversy such comparisons might stir.
Can you just call a spade a spade? Racism has been impacting the WNBA well before this year. This is not a new thing. Sure. This is, in that way, I do think Caitlin's being used as a pawn. Caitlin didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening. And that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us, that other people are surprised by this. We've been trying to tell you. And once again, for so long, as a player, I would almost joke. I'd be like, I would have loved to have shut up and dribble.
And the best part, Stephen A. didn't even raise his voice.
Stephen A. didn't shy away from suggesting that some of the intense, often negative reactions directed towards Caitlin Clark were perhaps less about legitimate, constructive criticism of her game or conduct, and more about raw, unadulterated resentment or professional jealousy simmering just beneath the surface of public commentary. He didn't explicitly dismiss the idea that racism could be a factor in how athletes are perceived, but in the specific context of Clark's reception by some peers, he appeared to lean heavily towards the interpretation that her sudden, overwhelming spotlight, her consistent record-breaking performances, the league-altering endorsement deals, and the widespread adoration she receives were primary psychological triggers for certain veteran players. The descriptive phrase, "mean girls locker room drama," used in the source material to characterize some interactions, hinted vividly at this undercurrent of envy being a significant, if profoundly uncomfortable factor in the unfolding narrative, a dynamic Stephen A. seemed keen to expose.
Angel Reese is obviously and clearly taking too much heat because I believe a lot of people are using this situation as a cover for their innate vitriol and maybe their innate kind of racism or racial tension or racial misunderstanding. And now that they have been given a reason, at least the reason that they're going to try to take, which is Angel Reese reacting to Caitlin Clark's foul, now this is their opportunity to say what they always wanted to say, but they needed a mask put on to cover up the innate, whether it's racism or the innate prejudice or just the innate hate that they have for Angel Reese and the ways in which she carries herself. That's my issue with all of this.
While the original transcript and broader discussions acknowledge the long and painful history of racism impacting the WNBA well before Caitlin Clark's arrival, Stephen A. Smith's laser focus in this particular instance remained steadfastly on the specific interpersonal dynamics and on-court history he observed between Reese and Clark. Many commentators and activists rightly argue that Clark's presence and the disparate attention she receives are making existing systemic inequities and racial biases within sports media and fan culture more starkly visible. However, Stephen A.'s fiery tirade seemed to imply that in this specific, highly publicized saga involving Angel Reese, what might be readily labeled by some as a reaction to systemic issues could also be, or perhaps in his view, more accurately be interpreted as a manifestation of personal animosity or professional jealousy. He suggested these feelings might be conveniently, or even unconsciously, cloaked in the more socially resonant language of broader social justice concerns. He wasn't necessarily denying the pervasive existence of racism, but he was pointedly questioning its direct application as the sole or primary explanation for every negative interaction surrounding Clark in this specific instance.
First of all, the WNBA has been increasing in revenue way before Caitlin Clark was even thought of. Also, there have been a lot of women in this industry and in the WNBA specifically who have been fighting and advocating for changes in the league way before Caitlin Clark even stepped foot in it. Yes, jealousy is a natural reaction and it's a natural emotion and it exists whether people want to own up to it or not. And are there people across both male and female who may have animosity towards Caitlin Clark for the attention and the awareness and the pedestal that she has been put on? Sure. To lump all women together just further perpetuates this narrative that women are unable to be happy for other women. And as a woman, I find that insulting because one thing
Ultimately, while Angel Reese served as the immediate focal point for Stephen A. Smith's explosive and widely discussed critique, his actual target was demonstrably broader and more systemic. He was, in effect, taking rhetorical aim at an entire culture he perceives within professional sports, and perhaps extending into society at large, where he feels that social media activism, the relentless pursuit of viral moments, and carefully crafted public personas sometimes overshadow or even replace genuine on-court talent, hard work, and straightforward sportsmanship. He lamented what he saw as a generation of athletes, and by extension, some fans and media figures who appear more invested in cultivating hashtags, engaging in online skirmishes, and managing their brand than in perfecting their craft and letting their performance speak for itself. His call for accountability was a sweeping indictment that extended far beyond one player or one incident, indicting a system that he believes increasingly prioritizes drama, controversy, and digital clout over dedication and tangible achievements on the field of play.
Caitlin, when your head coach came out with a statement today saying she denounces all the racism that some people have felt in this league, players, trolls online, all those things, as one of the biggest stars in this league, what are your thoughts on the things not only your teammates have to endure, but just the entire league? And obviously, you spoke on this before, but just now your coach and your GM are talking about it as well.
Yeah, it's definitely upsetting. I don't think nobody in our league should be facing any sort of racism, hurtful, disrespectful, hateful comments and threats. Those aren't fans, those are trolls, and it's a real disservice to the people in our league, the organization, the WNBA. But there are a lot of really good fans, whether they've been fans for 20 plus years or whether they're new fans in our league.
In the turbulent and highly charged aftermath of Stephen A.'s verbal onslaught, Angel Reese did attempt to counter his potent narrative through her own social media channels, defending her stance and character. However, the sheer force and viral velocity of his televised critique had already taken on a formidable life of its own, permeating sports discussions across platforms. His impassioned rant was swiftly dissected, remixed, and disseminated into countless viral TikToks, YouTube reaction videos, and an array of internet memes, some humorously and absurdly depicting him dunking on Reese from the far reaches of outer space, illustrating the cultural impact of his statements. Meanwhile, in stark contrast to the digital battles, Caitlin Clark continued to do precisely what had brought her to this unprecedented level of fame: play basketball. She quietly went about averaging over 20 points per game, drawing record-breaking crowds to WNBA arenas nationwide, and, as the saying goes, seemingly living rent-free and unbothered in the heads of many who debated her impact.
Angel Reese was drafted number 8 in the same draft as Caitlin Clark, who was number 1? You don't think Angel Reese thought she should have been number 1 in the draft?
Oh, definitely.
That's something to be jealous of right there.
Oh, okay,
Now,
okay.
Mind you, let's be clear. That's not a bad thing. Steph Curry was drafted number 8 or number 7 in the draft.
Yeah.
That Blake Griffin was drafted number 1.
Oh, yeah.
Blake Griffin won Rookie of the Year, Slam Dunk Contest, everything. Curry just stayed in his bag, and then eventually his time came, and now he's the greatest from his class. Yeah. So it could be that. It could also be, it could just be, I hate that the crowd likes you. It could be, I hate that they love you and they don't love me. It's so many reasons, but it's real. That's what I want people to know. It is real.
This is only women that get this. I'm tired of it. Like, here's my thing, you guys. What else? Who are these girls? Who are these girls that are hating on Caitlin Clark? Are you just combing through Twitter? What else are these women supposed to do? Fawn over her? Fangirl over her? Bend the fucking knee? Kiss the ring? Like, what do you want from them? We cannot, every time the girl plays a game, she got 40 games, guys. She got 35 more games. We are not every single game gonna revisit and retread this same tired ass rhetoric that all these girls are hating on her, and they need to be thankful they have been.
Stephen A. Smith didn't just conclude his segment with a metaphorical mic drop, he practically launched the microphone into a geostationary orbit, daring anyone to retrieve it. His televised takedown was far more than a fleeting sports opinion. It was a searing, uncomfortable indictment. He effectively held up a massive, unflattering mirror to the entire sports world, compelling players, media organizations, and fans alike to confront their own potential biases, their selective outrage, and their often contradictory stances on issues of competition, race, and respect. The uncomfortable, lingering truth, buried beneath layers of his characteristic bombast and dramatically pointed fingers, was that Stephen A., in his own uniquely theatrical and provocative way, had articulated a perspective that resonated deeply and widely, even if it made many uneasy. He left the WNBA, its players, and its observers to grapple with the complex, often divisive echo of his words, and to navigate the challenging path forward in an era defined by unprecedented attention and the often contentious issues it brings to the fore.